stop being so mean to yourself. Look, I know you think that the harder you are on yourself, the more likely you are to get those results that you want out of life. You believe that if you talk to yourself like a drill sergeant, like you talk down to yourself and you insult yourself and you say things about yourself, never again, never again, stop being an idiot, you're not good enough, you're so stupid. You believe that if you continue to tell yourself these things, then maybe you will change your behavior. But I promise you, that all you are doing is reinforcing those very same things that have acted as agents of destruction in your life. It is time to be kinder to yourself. And I used to believe this was something that, soft people said, right? Or those individuals that weren't strong enough to take it. And so I would beat myself up time and time and time and time and time and time again, thinking that the more I beat myself up, the more motivated I would be. The more I beat myself up, the more likely I was to succeed and to reach my goals. But in truth, I was just brutalizing myself, hurting myself, and in the process, getting nothing in return besides deeper levels of trauma, besides deeper levels of hurt, besides deeper levels of internalizing those voices that told me those messages years and years ago. It's time to be nicer to yourself. And I'm not saying this as somebody who believes that you need to coddle yourself like a child in essence, but I do believe that you need to have the same amount of love for yourself that you would a child. Would you tell a child time and time again how stupid they were? Would you tell a child time and time again how terrible they were? You can't believe what they did last year, 2 years, 5, 10 years ago, and continue to repeat that same messaging? Would you continue to hold them in bondage for something that has already passed? I bet you wouldn't. Most sane people wouldn't do that to a child, and yet you would do it to your very self. And so my message today is short, sweet, and to the point. You need to be nicer. No, I'm not it's not an option anymore. If you're listening to this, I wish you knew how much I want this for you. I wish you understood how much I want this for you. I probably want this for you right now more than you want it for yourself, because I know the power of breaking free from the bondage of beating yourself up, of being so cruel to yourself, of continuously and perpetually giving yourself this message of shame and not enoughness, undeservedness, unworthiness. I grew up with those messages filled in my head. I grew up in a space, in a religion that taught me that I was less than a worm, I wasn't worthy, I wasn't enough, that nothing in me was right, that I was broken, that my heart was wicked and deceitful. These messages were perpetuated, and I would hold them, believing that if I held them close enough, then I could make God happy with me. I could make my Creator happy with me. And so I would brutalize myself. I would tear myself to shreds, hoping that I could appease those that were shouting these messages and shoving these messages down my throat. And so at this moment, I don't know what your own conversation is in your head, but I know that it is not serving you one bit. Even if you believe you've been getting results from it, I promise you, you've been getting results in spite of the messes that you have been shoving down your own throat. In spite of the messes that you have been fixated and perpetuating for far too long, I promise you, if you let that go and you start to just be a little kinder, a little nicer to yourself, if you start to be a little more gentle with yourself, I promise you, the results that you're looking for are going to be exponential. And I'm speaking this directly from experience. I'm not saying this from some book that I read. I'm not saying this from a speech that I heard or a seminar that I went to. This is my life. I've been in both places. I've been in both spaces. I know what it is to be the kid who was so obsessed and fixated on self-improvement and personal development. And I was going to do everything that I needed to do to make sure that I became that person. And I would beat myself and beat myself and beat myself into submission. And then I didn't realize that I was just continuing the messaging that I got as a child, the messages of undeservedness, of unworthiness, that program that had been fixated within my own subconscious mind. I was continuing to repeat those tapes, believing that somehow, some way, those would bring me to a place where I would finally be enough. If I just said it to myself enough, then finally, right? That's why so many of us hold on to guilt. We think if we just continue to justify or remind ourselves of the things that we did and how terrible we are for them and how bad we feel for them, then maybe we will be justified in that pleading. But I promise you, all that's going to do is keep you in that cycle. And if your deacon, your rabbi, your preacher, your pastor is telling you otherwise, then I hate to say it, but that individual is leading you towards absolute self-destruction. Because what message of love also contains in it hate? Yeah, I know. I'm fired up right now. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm angry a little bit. I'm frustrated a little bit because this energy that's been in me, it's not secondhand. This is my life. This is my experience. This is my day-to-day walk. These are the things that have drastically changed and shifted my entire worldview, my paradigm, the way in which I move through life, the way in which I relate to God and experience God's fullness. There's no way to do it while beating yourself to a pulp. There is no way while brutalizing yourself and continuously cursing yourself within yourself. I promise you there's no way. I know they're teaching you that. I know they're telling you that if you beat yourself up enough, if you whip yourself enough times and give yourself enough lashes, that you're finally going to be worthy, that you're finally going to be enough. But I promise you, all it's going to do is perpetuate the very same pain, the very same shame, the very same guilt, the very same agony, the very same frustration, the very same depression that has been persisting thus far. You don't have to live this way, I promise you. And it starts with something as simple as being kind to yourself. Be kind, be gentle with yourself, be nice to yourself. And I promise it will spill onto others, because the same judgment that you have on yourself, the same amount of beating yourself up you have for yourself, you also project onto those around you. And you say you want to love people, right? There are religious folk who say, I love people, but they brutalize and beat themselves up. They judge themselves continuously. They shame themselves continuously. How can you love somebody if there is no love within you? How? I want somebody, please, somebody let me know, explain to me how this is possible to love somebody else when in you there is only self-hatred. So I needed to get this deeper than off my chest, but out of me completely. I needed to purge this message out of me. And hopefully it's the last time I'll have to say this, but I feel like this is a message I'm going to have to continue throughout my life. Like, I wish I could just say this message once right now and everybody in the world would get the message and they would start being kinder to themselves. Everything in me wishes that was the reality, but I know there's going to have to be work to do. And I know the message is going to have to be continuously said in multiple forms, in multiple ways to multitudes of people. But if I could impute just one message right now in this very moment in my life, if this was the absolute last message I had to give, it would be kind to yourself. Treat yourself with the same amount of patience, the same amount of gentleness, the same amount of care, the same amount of intention as you would a child. Because how you treat yourself is how you will treat others. How you view yourself is how you view God. I really need to repeat that. How you view yourself is how you view God. Most people say God made us in his image, but most people are making God in their own image. Meaning if they judge themselves continuously, then they create a judgmental God. If they shame themselves continuously, if they punish themselves continuously, then they project that very same image onto the God that they serve. And so if you don't have love within you and you cannot even fathom and understand it within yourself, then how can you understand it and fathom it in anything else. That's it. It's really that's it's that simple, but that complex. And again, I know I'm going to be back here again. Thankfully, I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to live in a day and age, in a generation where I can do this. Like, I can speak directly from my spirit to your own, right? Again, my deepest desire is everybody to get this message. It just clicks, resonates, because this entire world would change overnight. I promise you that if everybody was kinder to themselves, if everybody was 5% kinder to themselves overnight, the entire world would change. The way in which we would view one another would change. The way in which we would love one another would change completely. Absolutely. Because we'll be loving within ourselves completely different. The relationship in which we have with life itself would be completely different. And so, again, I don't care how much or how long it's going to take. I give myself to this. I devote myself to this message. And I would have the sincerest hope that you do as well. That if this is something that not only resonates with you, but it's something that you put into action, that you start to live out, that you share with others, that you give this to others, like you give this gift to everybody that you know. Because without it, you've seen the results of that already. Peace.